All right. Thank you for attending. This is the second meeting of the Foothill Drive Traffic Calming Project. We met, it's been a while. It was back in, I guess, late fall, maybe late October, something like that, when this group was back together. I was not at that meeting. A colleague of mine was. And so happy to be here to kind of hopefully move this project forward and bring it towards a conclusion here. My name is Jeff Hammond. I'm a consultant working for NDOT, which is the Nashville Department of Transportation. And Ellie Finn is also on the call. She's with our consulting team as well. And one of our roles is to help administer the traffic calming program for NDOT. It is a big program. We'll talk about that. A lot of neighborhoods and a lot of moving parts. And so we're glad Foothill is part of that. I'm going to cover three major topics during the meeting. One is just kind of a recap of the program itself and how Foothill got here. The second part is we'll focus on the latest traffic calming plan, make sure your questions are answered on that. And then the third part, let you know where we go from here, some next steps and time frames and what you can expect in that vein. So there we go. So traffic calming, you're probably aware, is a lot of people think of us as the speed cushion program, and they're not wrong. We do a lot of speed cushions, but we do those primarily on residential streets. This is a residential street program born out of needs that we have in our neighborhoods for orderly traffic, safe traffic. It's a big quality of life issue for a lot of Nashville neighborhoods, and we do focus on physical solutions as opposed to information, with signage or striping or things like that, and as opposed to enforcement. We get a lot of questions about enforcement, and of course, MNPD does the best job they can in traffic enforcement, but they've got a big job to do too, and they just don't have a lot of resources to put officers and cruisers out and write tickets, as much as helpful as that may be, and as much as we may like that. So NDOT is focused on the right of way and on engineering solutions, and so that's what we do. The goal is to reduce speeds. That may seem obvious. Sometimes people want to engage this program because they want the traffic to go somewhere else. Maybe if we make it inconvenient enough, it'll go somewhere else. We know on Foothill that's pretty well impossible. It is largely not a dead end street, but it is a no outlet street, and so we're really not able to move this traffic even if we wanted to anywhere. But we really do focus on just trying to lower speeds and not so much try to push traffic elsewhere, because often that just ends up in some other neighborhood, and that's not our goal. Lastly, we do focus on speed reduction over longer lengths. That's as opposed to a spot issue. Sometimes we have a crosswalk or a park or a school or something that needs some special attention, and that's really not what this program is designed to do. This is to help over the entire length of the street through the neighborhood. We do have limited resources as we work through some of that. I'll show you some numbers in that regard here in a moment. But we also do like to plug this tool, Hub Nashville. Traffic calming is one thing, and Foothill is already in this program, but sometimes neighbors have other issues, signage missing or signage needs, or things not related to traffic, brush pickup, trash pickup. All kind of services are available here at Hub Nashville. It's a great first stop for any request that you have of Metro government. We always encourage people hub.Nashville.gov to start that. I mentioned that there is a lot of demand for this program. In our last application window, we had well over 400 applications come into our system. Those are streets just like Foothill. That many people are experiencing these kind of speed and safety issues, and so we're working hard to address those. We do about 50 projects a year, Foothill being one of those, and so it's just there's a big backlog and a big demand, and we stretch those resources as far as we can. The way we do that and select, we try to put our highest needs at the top, and we do that by collecting data. and measuring that, and then prioritizing those needs accordingly. You see in this chart how we score the projects. Half the score comes from the speed that we actually measured on the street. Another 20% has to do with very specific safety history in the form of documented crashes. And then the other 30% has to do more with multimodal issues, because we know traffic calming and especially pedestrian issues, and to some extent bicycle issues, really go hand in hand. There are neighborhoods all over Nashville where residents just don't feel comfortable getting out and walking at night because of the speed that traffic is moving. And so those two aspects are rolled into this formula as well. I will say on Foothill, you don't have a lot of neighborhood destinations. That's things like parks and schools that, make people want to make a walking trip. You didn't score well in that. You did score pretty well in the active transportation. That's largely because of the lack of sidewalks. So if you don't have sidewalks, you get more points. You didn't have a lot of crashes, which is great news. And then your measured speed was pretty high. I think you were ranked somewhere around 17 out of all of the data that we collected, with a speed of average speed of 39 miles an hour. So that's really what got you in the program there. Whoops. So the section that we are looking at is, as we mentioned back in the fall, is Foothill from Murfreesboro all the way up to the dead end. And of course, you know what that looks like. Foothill is this kind of S-shaped curve in green to the top of the slide. I'm not sure if you can see my cursor moving or not. But it goes from the dead end here up north to where it ends at Murfreesboro Road. Haverhill Drive was also, I think, put on this application. So this slide is the Metro Tracker, which is a great tool I like to showcase, but because it does a couple of things. It shows us the street we're working on. Green line means that it's been accepted into the program and it's just in process. So you've got some neighbors here on the other side of the interstate over in the Woodbine area, Peachtree, Ludi. There's several streets over in that they're working about on the same time frame. We're doing these second meetings, and they are moving towards construction as well. Blue streets are streets that implemented. So Glen Rose, I don't think Glen Rose has speed cushions, but it has some radar signs. Hurry Road now has speed cushions. I think that's Graymont. There's several over in that Winthorne, Graymont area. Those may be the closest speed cushions to you. Those have been installed very recently. So this shows where some other projects in the area are. It's the reason I like it. The way you would access this map, which is interactive, you can zoom in, zoom out, pan all over Davidson County, is if you go to the Metro Neighborhood Street Traffic Calming Program, always just Google Metro Traffic Calming. On their main page, there's several options in this traffic calming track project. Here's where we are in the process. We're here at meeting 2. So we're about 2/3 of the way done with the major steps in the project. And so we've got a few things to go. Tonight I'm going to show you the plan, where it is, and then the steps that are remaining are a ballot. We're going to talk about that, and then finally is the construction aspect of it. So let's talk about the plan. Before I show you in a visual way on a plan set, I like to define what some of these measures are. You're probably aware, and the list is not very long. So we're going to talk about speed cushions. Speed cushions are the bread and butter of this program. It's preformed, prefabricated black recycled rubber, very high density rubber that we order. It comes to us. We give it to a contractor, and these big pads, and they come out and with a combination of epoxy and mechanical fasteners, bolt those into place in a configuration similar to what you see here. We can do two side by side. We can do three, just depends on the width of the road. And then we have different striping configurations. We almost always use the double arrow on one side, and then sometimes if a center one is needed, we have a stripe or a double arrow there. They're only about 3 inches tall. You can see that in this picture on the left, which sounds like not much, but we have found them to be pretty effective. This is the same product we use all over Davidson County, which is very nice because there's some consistency in that. We know what we're getting when we order these and install them. We know how they perform. We know how they hold up. And so we've been pretty pleased with the result of these. They do come in different lengths. So if you look left to right on that picture on the left, that's the length of the product. That one there is a 10.5 foot length. We can do them as short as 7. We can do them as long as 14. And the difference becomes in how aggressive they are, how comfortable they are, we might say, or how aggressive they are in slowing traffic. The longer they are, the 14 foot ones are gonna slow that traffic down less. In other words, you can more comfortably go over them at a higher speed than you can the 7 foot ones. So we really have kind of honed in on the 10.5 as our standard for a lot of neighborhoods, that are more suburban in nature. That 10.5 gives a nice consistent speed of about 25 miles an hour, our data is showing. When we're in more urban areas closer to town, or you have a lot of on-street parking where you really want to bring traffic to a slower speed, we can use the 7. And then likewise, if we're out in a more rural area, we might find that 14 footers are more appropriate. So we have a few options there. They do come in those individual pads. The reason we use the cushions is because of impacts to vehicles that we don't necessarily want to slow down. We want the fire trucks to be able to go quickly on the street, and the ambulance is the same way. Those vehicles have a wider wheelbase, and so these cushions are designed to accommodate that. And I'm not going to tell you they have no impact, but they have a lesser impact on those types of vehicles, larger wheelbase vehicles, and so they can kind of straddle those cushions and get to where they need to go more quickly. All right, so this is the plan set. I'm going to show you some actual pictures. They're a little technical looking, so we'll walk through them, but it's probably not very different from what we showed back in the fall. We're still looking here at the length of Foothill that's having 3 sets of speed cushions. The way we do that is we look at the length in between, I call them control points, but places where we have a stop sign or a signal along the road. Those are natural speed slowers anyway, and so we look at distances between those things. And so here we've just got the length, and what we do is take the length of the street and divide it by somewhere in between about 400 to 600 feet. We're looking for spacing of about that in between each set of speed cushions. We found that gives a good consistent slowing of the speed. It's close enough together so that people don't step on the gas as soon as they clear one of these and go quickly to the next one. But it's not so close together that it just feels obnoxious. Gets a lot of hate mail out of the neighborhood after they're installed. So we've got pretty good experience with how those need to be spaced. On this street, we're looking at those 3 sets, not only from a spacing standpoint, but as the name Foothill suggests, there are some hills out here. And so we don't want to put these on a hill of particular grade. We try to avoid anything that's steeper than 6% slope. So we've made those measurements. We also try to avoid any horizontal curves, where you have to turn the steering wheel to go around a curve. We want cars hitting them straight on as possible and on flat conditions as much as possible. Of course, we avoid intersections, and then we do our best to avoid driveways and get them at least about 15 feet from any driveway. In some neighborhoods, that's a real challenge, where you have a higher density and a lot of driveways. It can be tricky. We didn't really have that here on Foothill. Lots are a little bigger, frontage is a little longer, and so we've got plenty of room to work with. This is working on the north end, up by Murfreesboro Road. The big building there in the bottom right corner is the Hiller headquarters, I guess, or garage or whatever they've got there. And so our cushions don't start until after, I guess that's Haver Hill, where it goes up to the front entrance of the church. Um, at that point, we're really entering the neighborhood, and that's where our first set of speed cushions is. And then we've got two sets that are relatively close together. Those may be actually a little closer together than 400 feet. But the reason is because shortly after that we have an intersection, and then we start going up the hill. So we've tried to put as much in as we can right there before we get to the hill. These plans will be available on Metro's website. When the ballot goes out, there'll be a link there that allows someone who is contemplating a vote to click on that, and it will take them to this, so they can see these plans. They can zoom in and get as comfortable as they need to with them. And the information here, while it might be technical, is maybe helpful in spotting exactly where these are. So you've got details here that are as specific as the first set of speed cushions will be 90 feet north of the edge of the driveway at 405 Foothill Drive. So if you happen to live at 405 Foothill Drive, you will have no doubt about where this is going, and vote accordingly. So good detail here on these plans. There's only one other plan sheet, so as you come to the top of the hill, I guess this one is at the bottom of the hill. I think it dips down to about Deer Vale, and Deer Vale is really near the bottom of the hill, and that's where we've got our last set of speed cushions before it starts going back up again. So again, vertical curves, hills, and valleys are our biggest design challenge here, I suppose. But I think we've got a plan here that's going to give good results when those implemented. We are just given the width of the street. We do have two different configurations. In some of these cases, like you see here, there will be 3 wide. As you get closer to Murfreesboro, those other two sets will just be 2 wide. So that's a little bit of an interesting one here, in that the width of the road changes enough by about 10 feet actually, that as we go a little further back into the neighborhood, we need that 3-lane configuration. Of course, the reason we do that is just to make sure they're not so far apart that people can just shoot right in between them or drive around them. We want them to go pretty well from edge to edge of the street. This is the last sheet in the plan set that kind of shows you that, and shows how they would be arranged across the width of the street. I'll stop there. Any questions on the plan or placement of the speed cushions?
No, that covers a lot of good information for me. One of the specific things that neighbors had spoken to me about were actually the recent speed cushions on Curry Road, and the width of those being appropriate for the width of the road. I guess there was some concern that drivers might end up going around and into sort of into the ditches to avoid that. But it sounds like that these are arranged in such a way that would not be possible.
Yeah, I tell you, I guess I'm not surprised much anymore by what people will do, but we know that if you give anybody any opportunity to drive around, even if that means putting 2 wheels off the pavement, they will do it, and they will drive around these things, and it's really remarkable. But the other thing we try to do, and we use these signs as well. These signs are usually fairly close to the cushion itself, close enough that you don't want to maintain speed. If you try to drive around, you're going to have to go through a big metal sign in most cases. So that's also a nice deterrent.
Okay.
We don't. That's not why we have the signs, but it doesn't hurt, to have those.
Not to get too far off track, but it's kind of tangential, I guess. There was some concern from myself and neighbors that the installation of speed cushions on Foothill would drive traffic up Haven Hill and around Crown Hill and Bunker Hill, the side streets, so as to avoid contact with speed cushions. I don't know if you have any insight on that.
I'm not sure where they would wanting to be going. I mean, that would be a pretty drastic detour.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you're in a section, I'm trying to think of what might be closer. I mean, things like Sylvan Park, um, you know, closer in neighborhoods. I'm trying to think in kind of the Murfreesboro Road. Nothing's coming to mind, but Germantown, East Nashville, Sylvan Park, Woodland, and Waverly. You know, the first string neighborhoods where you're very much a grid pattern. That may be the case. You know, if you put them on one street, it's pretty easy to hop over one block where that block may be, you know, 300 or 400 feet away and then
Mm-hmm.
continue your journey. Here, I don't see it. I mean,
Okay.
you really are going to have to be going out of your way to avoid these. What we find is people stay on the street, and that's our goal. And we just hope that they drive that slower.
Okay. Yeah. One of the neighbors had brought up something in regard to this that hadn't even occurred to me. And maybe, you know, it's something he's witnessed. He's really a long time resident of the neighborhood, so he's seen a lot. Is some cars whose destination is down the end of Foothill Drive away from Murfreesboro that are, you know, the cars are physically lowered so low that it might actually cause physical damage to the car to go over a speed cushion. I don't know if at a reasonable speed that would happen, but it seems like cars like that may be suffering physical damage from going over the cushions would perhaps go around. I don't know.
Possibly, yeah. No, I think it might take something like that, and then you know, if there's a car like that or two, it might. But keep in mind too, I mean, these are no higher and are less aggressive than the speed bumps you would find in the Kroger parking lot. So, you know, wherever they can go typically, you know, we're not introducing anything here on the street that is not kind of an existing condition elsewhere.
Okay.
But I don't disagree with you. I mean, if someone finds that, you know, even if they slow down to 5 miles an hour and creep over this thing, if they can't do it, then they might avoid it. But I wouldn't think that would apply to
Okay.
many.
Hey, this is Pat Shockney. I'm on the phone, couldn't get on the site. I've been listening to you about 5 or 10 minutes. When you mentioned, well, it was mentioned about Curry Road, and you said you had ways of keeping people from driving around on the shoulder. Are you going to change what's been done on Curry Road, or?
Potentially, yeah. I'm not aware of the. I have not heard of the issues on Curry. That's news to me. So NDOT may be aware of those. They may not. I don't know. But sometimes that's at one particular set of speed cushions. Sometimes it's something that, you know, is being consistently driven around. But yeah, whether it's signage or whether it's a lot of times we'll use a white flexible delineator. You've probably seen them around town, you know, in different areas. But those can be mounted on the edge of the road. And so, I mean, we can't do much off of the surface of the pavement aside from these signs, but yeah, we try to take up as much of the width of the road. And then if that's still not good enough, I mean, I think NDOT would be interested in that and trying to figure out, you know, where that's happening and how to counter it.
Was there a measurement taken of Foothill? Because it was widened when it was repaved about 8 years ago, to see how these cushions would fit in the road.
Yes, sir. There was. And so these measurements that you're seeing here are current. They would be current as of probably late 2022. So
Okay. I can't
as
see
you
the
go,
site, so
oh yeah,
I'm
I'm
just going.
sorry, I forgot that. Yeah, sorry. So I've got the slide up now, and so as you get up closer to Murfreesboro Road, I was explaining that the road is actually narrower. It's like 20 to 22 feet. As you go deeper into the neighborhood, I don't know if this is a function of when they paved it or what, but it's wider back
Yeah.
there. It's like 30 feet, and so our speed cushion strategy changes back there. So yeah, we are.
Okay, so I don't even think you're putting any in the narrower stretch because that's a incline. You're starting after Haven Hill, is that right?
Starting
If
after
you're
Haven.
coming,
Yeah. Well, but even right after Haven Hill up to, let me see what that street is. It's not labeled on here, but
Haven
the
Hill,
first
then the next one is Crown Hill, and then the
Crown Hill.
next one is Deerville, and then
Okay.
Giant Oak.
So between Crown Hill and Haven Hill, we do have two sets of speed cushions. Even there, we're measuring it no wider than 22 feet. So it's still, that's a typical width road. Most lanes in Nashville are about 11 feet wide. So yeah, it just gets wider as we get back past, I guess Deervale seems to widen out there, and that's where we've got a set of three cushions side by side.
So you, again, not being able to see it, but is it like what we had was discussed a few months ago? It's two sets on the flat stretch between Haven Hill and Crown Hill, and then one set closer to Giant Oak, but between Giant Oak and Deerville?
You got it right there at the bottom of that
Yeah.
hill. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's exactly what we still got.
Okay.
So let's talk for a minute about the ballot, because there's often a lot of questions about this. So what we will do from tonight, assuming we've got consensus on that plan, is we're going to go ahead and put that plan on the website, so it'll be there, and then we begin sending out the traffic calming ballots. And I know you can't see it, but we've got a picture of those on the slide here, and it's a little card. If you got a card for tonight's meeting, it looks very similar to that.
Right.
And then the card has a QR code on it. You'll scan that; it'll take you right to a Nashville.gov page that is really only accessible through that link or that QR code, and that's where you enter your information, your property and so forth, and then you get to vote whether you like it or you don't. That voting process stays open for 6 weeks. There's a specific date, and that's printed on the card as to when that will close. And so we'll keep it open on the day that closes. We tally those votes, and if 66% of the votes that have come in are in favor of the project, NDOT will order the materials and move that forward. If there's fewer than that, then they won't. We'll go back in and relook at, is there something that doesn't involve speed cushions that can still be implemented. The people that get to vote are the owners that have property abutting this section of Foothill. And I would stress that is the owners, and those will be sent to the owner's address. We know that may be a landowner somewhere very far away, and that's just where it goes. And so we ballot
Right.
the owners and not necessarily the resident, if that's a tenant.
So
we do
even
just
people that are not, even people that are, say on a corner, but their address is not Foothill, but they actually have their property line runs up along Foothill, those would be eligible also?
Yes, sir. If they have even if their access, I even think at the end of this street, there may be a property that's accessed totally away. But yeah, if your access is on Giant Oak or Deervale or anywhere, but your property line abuts Foothill, you will be balloted as well. Those are residential properties, so we're not sending them to the church or to the Hiller or anybody else. We just send those to residential properties that the city believes has a structure on it. If it's a vacant residential property, we don't ballot that either. And then we only send one ballot to any individual landowner. So if someone owns 4 properties on the street and it's all under the same name, going to the same address, they're just going to get one card, get to vote one time. That's most of the ins and outs of the voting. Any questions about that though?
So it's just,
Well, I'm curious, is there anybody other than myself and I believe Nick on this call?
yeah, Jonathan and I are here, Pat.
Oh, okay.
So my question is, so you said 66% of property owners that respond. So if only 3 people respond, just 2 have to say yes, correct?
You got it.
So it's not 66 of the total eligible. It's just whoever responds. We just need 66% of the. Okay.
That's correct, and that's a good question because it used to be 70% of everybody, and it was more of a petition process. Neighbors had to kind of take it upon themselves and go door to door, and you can imagine how difficult that was to get people to the door and to acquire 70% of everybody. So now, yeah, it's just like a real election. You only count if you vote. If you don't vote, you just don't count. So we're looking for 66% of the people that vote.
Okay,
The
I
track
like that.
record is pretty. I mean, in terms of it passing, most of them are passing. I mean, it's up into the 80%, I think, of all the ballots that are going out are in favor. So, for what it's worth. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I was gonna say I like that because I'm not. My house is 1 off on Crown Hill, and so, but we don't walk. Like I know lots of our neighbors have dogs and kids, and like we just don't do anything on Foothill because it's dangerous, but we don't get to vote. But I have friends. We have some contacts, so I'm making a list of who to reach out to and ask to please vote yes because we can't. So
Yeah,
I'm glad that it doesn't have to be. Yeah, if we can get a few people to vote yes, then hopefully we can get it passed.
right. Yeah, we still encourage that. I mean, that's the one thing we miss on the petition. You know, there was a lot of that neighbor interaction and discussions would happen, and we still hope that happens. You know, we encourage you to talk to your neighbors and sway them however you're so inclined. But yeah, we think that's a good way to do it. And again, this recording may be a tool for you, and you'll have access to it if that's helpful. Anybody you encounter wants to learn more.
So if everything is approved tonight or whatever, when will these approximately go out? I'm just thinking like to talk to some of our neighbors, like what's the time frame of them? Oh, okay.
Perfect timing. So next steps from here, I like to say give us 2 to 3 weeks from tonight to get the ballots out. It won't take that long. I mean, you may start seeing them end of next week or so, but so there'll be a little bit of time to get the ballots out. That would kick off the 6-week time frame. And assuming it comes back and it's affirmative and we want to move forward, then we will order those materials. That's taking about 2 months to get the cushions in. NDOT, unfortunately, Metro's not able to stock those. And then once they come in, we ask for about another 2 months to get that scheduled and out to the contractor. So their plate's full. They're working on, projects that are just ahead of y'all. And so hopefully by the time all that happens, their schedule will be freed up and things will kind of fall out of about on that time frame. But that tells you we are, 4 months in. We're into the fall at this point, from today, probably early mid-fall before we'd be looking at any implementation. So just keep that in mind that, you're not going to see anything here in the next few weeks. There's still some time left to go. Does that answer that question well enough?
Yeah, I just wanted to know when to bug my neighbors that are on Foothill.
Yeah.
If we have a noticeable problem with them, can we contact NDOT and will they respond to making a change or something, or do you have to go through this whole
Yeah.
process?
No, that's a great question. We'd like to know that now. So if you when we post these plans and before we and if you know you've got something now and it would be helpful to see those plans in more detail, I'll be happy to forward them to you, before we post them and get too far. But that's kind of what the point of meetings like tonight is. If you have issues or want to follow up with either one of us, I put our email addresses up here. Feel free to go ahead and do that. If you have a problem like I just don't like them and I never will, that's very valid as well. But it doesn't instigate a change to the plans. If you've got something though that says, hey, you really need to think about where you're putting this. It ponds here all the time or whatever. Yeah, we would like to make those modifications now. So yeah, we would appreciate that feedback. Those are our contacts. I'm Jeff at the bottom. Thomas, who is mentioned at the top, is our program manager. He's the actual NDOT employee. He's very responsive, and so feel free to send that to either or both of us if there's follow up or questions or concerns that you have. Once we do ballot it, I don't think we've had a case yet where we've come back and changed something. Even if we needed to shift it or move a cushion locations, what we're really balloting is kind of the concept of speed cushions on your street. We know they can be controversial and they're not for every neighborhood, and so that's why we give people that say in the matter. But if we shift something around, in our mind, that doesn't invalidate the fact that it was either desired or not desired, and so we wouldn't necessarily have to redo a whole ballot because of that. I think that's all I've got.
Yeah, all your since I can't get on the site, all your information is on the site. What can I do to be able to see what you've got going on?
Well, let me read this out to you. Are you to where you can write an email address down?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. It's this is my email address. This is JEFFHAMMOND at BURCH transportation.
Wait, at and what's the after
It's,
at?
It's Birch Transportation. BURCH.
Transportation.
.com.
Okay.
If you do, if you are able to get on the internet, later, you're just not able to do it now. If you can later, this presentation is being recorded and will be on Metro's YouTube channel.
Okay.
But you can also get the Traffic Calming website and scroll down. You'll see all of these. See all the presentations just like this for all the neighborhoods. So it'll probably be up there. It may be up there tomorrow, or may not be up there till first of next week, but it'll be there. So you'll see all this as well that way. I'm sorry, I keep forgetting. Sometimes you do call in on the phone, you don't. Any other questions?
Hey, this is Nick Bennett. I just had one other thing I'd like to address here. It seems like this is the time to do it, and it had been brought up in meeting one, but I just wanted to kind of be on record and sound you out about it now. Was the feeling amongst myself, certainly, that as a pedestrian, running, walking on on Foothill, I feel like the most treacherous part for pedestrians anyway is that downhill middle section. So if you're traveling away from Murfreesboro, it would be between Crown Hill and, you know, Hollydale and Deervale further on. And obviously that's an incline, so I know there are limitations to the traffic calming measures available there. Is there anything, you know, that could be implemented there, you know, beyond speed cushions, or is that just a section that's off limits to changing because of the incline?
Yeah, occasionally what we'll do is, you know, if we have a long stretch that we just can't get one of these things in, and it does happen, we will sometimes use a radar feedback sign. That's one of the other most common tools in our toolbox to just try and bring some awareness to that fact. I think in this case, you know, the distance between the speed cushions as they're planned, it's just not that long of a distance. I don't, in my opinion, to warrant that. You know, I do think you have, y'all know way better than I do, but I think you've got a little bit of a sight distance maybe as you come up over the hill going towards Murfreesboro Road. It seems like it's kind of a hill combined with a curve. And so I totally understand what you're saying, you know, about that kind of being a treacherous spot. What I tend to tell people is, you know, these things, as we said at the outset, they're intended to calm traffic over the entire length of the street. And they typically do a pretty good job at that. Now, these things are not foolproof. You're going to still get some irresponsible person that's going to drive way too fast, and they're going to hit these, and it's not going to slow 100% of the traffic down. We know that, but by and large, when we have a series of these like we've got here, I think you're going to see a noticeable difference in how people drive, even that section where you're talking about, even though we don't have one right in there. I still think we're closely spaced enough that you're still going to see a positive benefit for how people drive this entire stretch of Foothill. I would say give it a chance and see how this works. If there's still, you know, issues where maybe they're clearing the speed cushions and speeding up, you know, just abnormally, and then going to the next one. I think that can be revisited, maybe with some signage or something else. But I would hazard to guess that, you know, it's going to be a lot better situation than it is now.
Great, thank you. And the other thing that just came to mind too, I think there's maybe one speed limit sign. I think it's when you're entering, you know, the neighborhood, which is a closed system. I can't think of any more. I'm sure there are on the side streets, but can you confirm the speed limit is 25 throughout this sort of closed system of streets? Is that right?
It's 25, yes.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I honestly, I don't know if people are just unaware of that. I mean, that may be, it's certainly not helping the issue with speeding, but
yeah, it could be a recent change. You know, all of Davidson County became, well, all of the urban services district of Davidson County became 25 about a year and a half ago, I think. And so it's that recent. You know, before then, the default speed limit had always been 30, and was 30 in most streets. And so a big change was done all at once. And so it's probably new to people. I think we're still seeing a lot of, you know, a lot of people that aren't aware of that, or just, you know, like you were saying, people have been here forever and, you know, didn't even, they it just never even registered now that the speed limit is 25.
Mm-hmm.
We hope that'll, you know, as people move in, people move out, that will become normal. We hope, you know, we'll see some speed reduction. So our goal in this program is to bring people down to that speed limit, and these cushions that we've got here do a pretty good job of that.
Great.
At least they help.
If they can slow this school bus down, that's usually the biggest offender of the speed limit on Foothill I've seen.
Yeah.
That'd be a big help.
That's not a good situation, but yeah. You know, they are one of those larger wheelbase vehicles, so I mean they might be impacted less, but they will still be impacted. I'm not saying they can't totally straddle them, but so hopefully they will. Well, I won't keep you. I appreciate everyone taking the time to be here tonight and your continued interest in this and participation in the process. And again, all these materials will be available through the Metro website. And in the meantime, if you do have any other questions or concerns, feel free to reach out to either Mr. Thomas or myself or who's there. Be glad to get back to you. Thanks again, and
Yeah.
I'll wish everybody good evening.
All right. Thank you, Mr.
Sure.
Hatt, and everybody, and appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.